By the way, earlier Xavier suggested that I should do a My Little Pony video, and that's not what this video is, but that might have to happen at some point. Dear Discutiment, I'm wearing my Ruby onesie for this video because it is cozy and comfy and new and I love it. And this video is all about being comfortable, so it all works out. It is March and I am so excited. I am not exactly looking forward to any specific thing. It's not like anything big is happening this month other than like people's birthdays. I just really was tired of February. Don't assume it's like a Valentine's Day thing because I actually really love that holiday. I think it's super, super cute. But February in general isn't very kind to me. Back in middle and high school, I used to pick one or two friends that I was close with, usually guys, and I got very clingy to them. I realized that I'd always get needy and just constantly asking for like affection and attention, and I assumed that it was just because it was close to Valentine's Day and it was my way of compensating for not having a boyfriend, but I never really questioned it much. I just knew I have this thing that happens to me every February. I called it my February illness. It wasn't until I got to college and started going to therapy that I realized I get really depressed around January and February. At the beginning of senior year, I stopped seeing my counselor, and I only started seeing her again in spring semester when things got really bad, to the point where I didn't want to be in my apartment ever and I didn't feel comfortable sleeping in my own bed. I spent an entire week on the couch in the living room and Mariah was freaking out because she didn't know how to help me. When I called the wellness center to make an appointment for counseling, my counselor asked me if I knew that this was around the same time that I'd made an appointment last year. I started going to therapy almost exactly to the day a year ago. When I go through my bouts of depression, I'm the kind of person who does tend to cling to certain people because I need that kind of support and I need that attention and just validation, I suppose, reassurance that there are people who are willing to stick through it with me. And like most of my other mental health stuff, back in high school I didn't know what was going on, so I just assumed it was me being a weird teenager and probably like trying to flirt or something. That's not how that works. Now that I've kind of realized that, I was expecting February to be a pretty tough month, and I was preparing myself for it. But life tends to throw things your way that you don't see coming, and you just have to roll with it. I was given a bunch of new responsibilities at my job, and as grateful as I am for this job, I feel overwhelmed and underprepared for this position, so I've just been stressing about going to work every day. There's also been a lot of news coming into my life from various different areas, so even though none of them are related, a lot of changes are happening, and I wasn't prepared for that. And it's kind of overwhelming my system a bit, on top of the fact that around this time of year, my system isn't used to taking things in at all very well. I considered going back to therapy because I thought it might be a good idea to have somebody stable there to talk to during this time, and I don't want to completely rely on my friends for that. I want to have something else. But I thought, you know what? I'm not going to the wellness center anymore because I'm not at McDaniel. I could schedule an appointment with my therapist at Kaiser, but I think the best thing I can try to do for now is use the methods that I've learned from both of these places, try to apply them and see how far I go on my own. If it gets to a detrimental point, obviously I'd make the choice to go see a therapist because my safety comes before my pride. But it's important to try these things because that's what therapy's for. It's not supposed to be a constant part of your life. It's supposed to help you find ways that work for you. So this video is kind of just talking about stress management, how to cope with depression, different things that I've used that have been very helpful to me that might help you in either a really tough situation or just on a bad day. Something that my therapist suggested to me that has actually been surprisingly helpful is a list of things that I already do to calm myself down. I think we all have things like watching Netflix or calling a friend or coloring, doing a puzzle, whatever it is, that helps us de-stress a little bit and gets us to a calmer place. The problem is if we're going through a really bad depression attack or like through an anxiety attack, we're not thinking straight. We overthink and panic and have no idea what it is that we're supposed to do. So my therapist suggested making a physical list where we write everything down and putting it in a safe place. When you feel that the bad emotions and the stress and everything start to pile up, you can feel it coming, you just look for your list and you already have it there. You don't have to think about what it is that you're gonna do to like get out of this rut. It's already there. You already have something to go to. Something that I'm not so great at, that I still kind of struggle with, is the idea of giving something a certain time or putting something in a drawer. Again, with anxiety and depression, you tend to overthink things. Something is taking up too much of your brain space to the point where it's an obsession and it's unhealthy. And it's hard for logic and positive thoughts to shine through when this thing is just clouding everything else. Some people are going to say, just don't think about it, but that's not realistic. The reason that it's taking up so much space is because you need to think about it. Part of your brain needs to process these emotions or these events or what's going on. In that situation, what helps a lot of people is to give it a certain time. So between this hour and this hour of every day, that is your time to think about it. If it comes up in your brain at any other part of the day, you say, not right now. You will have your time. That will come later. Right now I need to focus on this. And then within those 15, 20 minutes, you give that all the attention you need it to have. But once that time is up, that's it for the day. You've made your peace. You need to move on to something else now. It's kind of like taking something out of a drawer. When you're using it, you take it out and it's out and about doing its thing. But when you're done using it, you put it away. You don't need to look at it anymore. You don't even need to acknowledge it. It's been put away for the day. That's probably the hardest one for me to wrap my head around just because I obsess over everything all the time. I have an obsessive personality. So it's difficult for me to say it's been put away. I tend to crack the drawer open just a little bit too much, but I'm working at it. I'm getting better and better at it. Something really helpful for stress management in general is the caress method, which I learned at McDaniel. The caress method is a routine that takes less than an hour and is something that should be done regularly, not just when you're stressed out, but in order to prevent stress from occurring. The method involves 3 steps and each one should be done for 10 to 15 minutes at a time. The first step is communicate alternatively. So the idea is you find some creative outlet to express what it is you're going through, be it through writing in a journal, making a painting, music, clay is a really big one, just some physical way to express what it is that you are going through without just talking about it. The second step is do something to release endorphins. This can be a physical activity like exercising or dancing. This can be something that makes you laugh or makes you smile, like watching a comedy act or YouTube videos or something. This can also mean some kind of touch that releases endorphins. So cuddling with a puppy or like hugging a friend. Sometimes even just like taking a nap and like cuddling with your blanket can still release endorphins. Something that just makes you feel physically comforted. And the last part is self-soothe. So this is something that calms your body down as well as your emotions. So sometimes that's just a breathing exercise, about breathing calmly. That can be something like a mindfulness exercise, which I know a lot of theater kids do a lot. A big one is something that relaxes your senses, so a warm shower or drinking tea, listening to soft music, aromatherapy, something that calms your actual physical senses down. You're meant to pick one thing to do for each of the 3 categories and you do them back to back to back. And if you can somehow make this a part of your daily routine, it makes a big difference. It's also a good idea to switch up the activities every now and again so it doesn't get too monotonous. So one day you might do clay, and then YouTube videos, and then aromatherapy, and then the next day you do painting and cardio for 15 minutes, and then a nice bath. These are just some tools that have been pretty helpful for me in the past month that I thought I would share. If you have any others that you think would be good, I would love to hear them. And let me know if you do use any of these. Tell me if it's actually super helpful or if it did nothing for you and this is not a method you want to do again. Everybody's different, so let me know what works for you. And if you can, I suggest buying a onesie because they're so cuddly. Happy March, and I will see you next time. Love, Sammy.